Are you ready to revolutionize your relationship with money? Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where I, Dr. Disha Spath, will be your companion on this exciting adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms. Pearson Ravitz's story begins with Dr. Stephanie Pearson, a passionate OB-GYN at the height of her career. But then, a shoulder injury struck during a precipitous delivery. Her dreams were shattered, leaving her unable to practice medicine. Determined to make a difference, Stephanie became an advocate for her peers, guiding them through the complex disability process. Alongside insurance expert Scott Ravitz, Stephanie founded Pearson Ravitz, a company determined to approach insurance differently. Together, they set their mission to educate and empower physicians to protect their most valuable asset, their income, and the most important people in their life, their family. Today, Pearson Ravitz serves the medical community in all 50 states. At Pearson Ravitz, they understand the unique concerns of physicians. Physician-founded and physician-focused, Pearson Ravitz builds human connections before they create quotes. Life can change in an instant. It's hard to imagine that a sudden illness or injury could leave you and your family in a devastating financial situation. But with a little planning and guidance, you can prepare for every possibility. Visit PearsonRavitz.com to schedule your consultation with a Pearson Ravitz advisor. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician. I'm Dr. Disha Spath, and today we're joined by Ethan A. Nkana, founder of Rocky Mountain Physician Agency. Ethan's work is pioneering in empowering doctors with a special emphasis on addressing the wage gap for women in medicine. His extensive experience in hospital finance and operations, combined with his legal and business acumen, positions him uniquely to advocate for fair compensation and equitable work conditions for doctors. Let's dive into Ethan's journey and explore how RMPA is changing the game for women in medicine. Well, Ethan, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. It's a snowy day in Denver today, so it's been a cozy day inside.
Yeah, we have not gotten much snow thus far until this weekend here in upstate New York. And now it's just like the floodgates have opened and won't stop snowing at all. How is it? Have you gotten a lot of snow in Colorado?
No, similar to you, not much. Usually by now we've had, a few major storms, but there's only been a couple this year. So it's a mild winter here in Denver.
Well, we still have some time to go. So
Exactly.
Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm really, really excited to talk about this topic with you. I'm very passionate about helping physicians negotiate fair contracts and especially addressing the gender wage gap. So please tell us a little bit about you, what your background is, and what motivated you to start Rocky Mountain Physician Agency, which helps physicians negotiate fair contracts.
Yeah, great question. And really the genesis of RMPA is my mom. And she's a physician. And in her work, she demonstrated to me that there is a disparity that women physicians experience in the workplace that not every doctor has to deal with. And that was really the catalyst for the work that I do now. But I think kind of the cool thing about my weird eclectic career is that my mom initially told me to get into healthcare as a job and said, you'll always have a job there. And what she didn't foresee and couldn't have foreseen is that in 2019, I got laid off. What I didn't know then was it was the catalyst for what I get to do now. And so now I get to use my training as a lawyer, my MBA, and then a decade and a half working in hospitals and administration, and take all of that and use it to help doctors as opposed to figure out how can we squeeze more blood out of the stone.
So what were you doing that you got laid off from? Were you working in hospital administration then?
I was. So that's actually the only thing I've ever done in my career. I'm a one-trick pony. I have quite literally only had jobs in hospitals. So at the time, I was working in this newly founded strategy job in a department called innovation. And we were this small internal entrepreneur group that was building these capabilities for healthcare that we didn't have at the time. And that was kind of my last job in a string of jobs. I had done operations, so supply chain, food and beverage, physician contracting, legal, HR, finance. So I know down to the dollar the value of a physician to a hospital. And I was the one who was helping the CEO figure out, well, how much does Dr. Spath make us? And how much are we paying her? And how much are we making off of her? And I only worked in nonprofit.
You were on the dark side.
But it was faith-based nonprofit healthcare. So you would think we're all here for the mission. And that's true. And at the same time, it's a business. And that's the part that I get to remind doctors about on a daily basis.
We oftentimes, just put our nose to the ground and just work as hard as we can just to try to help people and just do the best job we can. And we're not looking at the numbers, but it's important to remember that there are people out there looking at the numbers who know our worth down to the cent, really. And we should also arm ourselves with that information. Tell me a little bit about your mom's career. What does she do?
My mom is an anesthesiologist. I'll tell you a little bit about her, but one of the coolest things happened just a couple of months ago where I did this in-person event for doctors, wined and dined, just this beautiful night, and got to tell doctors, hey, here's how you can get a salary raise at your jobs now. And my mom came out for that event. And so it was so cool to look out and see my client, Dr. Moore, and my client, Dr. Jones. And there's my mom sitting amongst the doctors that I get to serve. Just a really surreal moment. But she's an anesthesiologist by training. And so her entire career has been in the OR, as you know. And the fortune that I've had with this work is really early on, my mom told me, you need to pay special attention to women physicians. And admittedly, I didn't appreciate what I would find and what the data would show. Because to me, doctors walk on water. It doesn't matter what gender or race, doctors walk on water. But when you look at the data, there's very obvious wage gap, which you talked about on the White Coat Investor podcast. There's a very obvious wage gap that only impacts women physicians or disproportionately impacts women physicians. And my mom was the one to plant that seed. And so I'm grateful to her for the insight of knowing you have to pay special attention to women because the system is set up for women to fail.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for your mom for guiding a bright lawyer like you our way to help advocate. Now, you mentioned some data. Let's get into that because, there are a lot of naysayers out there that will completely deny the data, despite WHO publishing a very comprehensive review of how the wage gap is prevalent throughout the world. Tell us a little bit about the data that you're referencing to.
Yeah, there's copious data about this topic, and it's out there in the open. So the thing that's so shocking to me is this is a very open knowledge for anybody who wants to find it. I'm just shocked that more people aren't angry about it. I mean, I think we saw and we are seeing women start to push back and say enough is enough. And specifically, I worked with a group of 6 women doctors just recently, and they said to HCA, a national healthcare company, enough is enough. And they went back, renegotiated, got $1 million, and and they're all making a whole bunch more money now, which is awesome. But it begs the question, well, why weren't they paid that money before? Why did they have to step up and say, if you don't pay us this money, we're going to leave? But they are a practical example of the data that's published by Medscape, Merritt Hawkins, Physician Thrive, Doximity. All of those resources on an annual basis publish physician salary surveys, and they always have a section in there about the salaries for men and women physicians broken out by specialists as well as by generalists. I don't have to tell you what the numbers are. You know what they are, but the numbers are damning.
But a lot of people will say, well, those numbers are so biased because women work less. Women take more time with patients. They generate less RVU. So that's how they get paid less. What do you have to say to that?
I have to say that Hospital executives will say whatever they need to say to protect their bottom line. I'm just going to just make it as plain as I can. Here's the reality. And I say this, I was with the University of Michigan residents and fellows last week, and I told them this the other day. Hospital executives want three things. They want you to be as busy as possible, as fast as possible, for as cheap as possible. I know a hospital income statement like the back of my hand. And I can tell you by specialty how busy you are, how valuable a doctor is. But here's how you can point out the hypocrisy in what they're saying, Dr. Spath. So let's just say a general surgeon goes into her CEO and says, I'm making 20% less than my colleague, and we're doing the same job. I need you to fix that. The CEO will say something like, well, if you look at Dr. Jones' volume, he's just way busier than you. And, you leave to pick up the kids for soccer practice. And, you spend 25 minutes with patients, and we really need you to spend 15. So you're telling me today that I should spend less time with patients, I should be faster, work harder, work longer. But then when I come back to you and my patient satisfaction scores drop because I'm not spending as long with patients as they need, then I'm having a different conversation with you. So which is it? Do you want me to spend more time with the patients and keep your patient satisfaction scores high so that we're further friends? Or do you want me to churn and burn and see patients in 15-minute increments and do my charting when I'm at home with my family?
There has been quite a few studies that also show that, for example, women gynecologists make less per procedure than urologists do when they provide similar service, right? The wage gap is built into the system. The feminization of any field makes it worth less.
What's even shocking to even put an exclamation point is if you look at OBGYNs, generalists, specialists, 75% plus are women. But guess who makes the most money in those specialties on average? Explain to me how 3 out of 4 doctors can be women, yet the 1 out of those 4 who's a man is making the most? Make that make sense to me.
Yeah, I have personally witnessed this on a personal level all the time. I'm in primary care. There are many, many ways to increase productivity in primary care and make things unfair. I've been in positions as a new hire where I see all the new complicated patients that are coming out of the hospital, whereas the, male attending that's more established sees the easy follow-ups, right? And I see the problem visits, they see the follow-ups that are just, physicals or quick visits to refill meds where I'm fixing the issues and it takes me longer, right? Or I've been in positions where I have been in a position longer, but the new hire man gets the administrative job that I've been wanting, not just once, but over and over and over again. This is the way that the system seems to be set up. And if I say anything about it, then I'm difficult and I'm demanding and the woman gets labeled. So stop me from going off on my high horse here, but you understand how this works, I'm sure.
I actually want you to keep going and go a little deeper on that. So one of the things that I've been struggling to understand that maybe you can shed some light from the physician's perspective is, and I have clients who have had a similar experiences, right? Where they find out that a younger, more junior doctor came in and they're making more money than the senior doctor who's been there for 3 or 4 years. Unfortunately, that's a common scenario. I am trying to understand from a psychological perspective is what then is your response? So go back to those situations and kind of walk me through what did you feel? How long did you feel that? And what allowed you to navigate to that next phase of processing those emotions? Did you jump ship? And just kind of talk me through what your thought process was as a physician.
My thought process as a physician when this sort of thing happens is, number one, I bring it up with my immediate superiors and bring up my concerns. Often that gets me labeled. And then once I bring it up, and then usually they tell me, well, there's nothing we can do. Then I move on. Basically, I say, okay, well, I'll finish out my contract, then I'm gone because you don't value me. And that's usually how it's worked throughout my career.
So when you are processing that decision to move on to something else, what's that like? Is that scary? Are you feel like righteously justified? Are you sad to be leaving a place you built a practice, like kind of moving to a place where they do value you?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's very, very painful and really financially for the institution and also for my patients. But for me to leave a practice means saying goodbye to 1,000+ people that I've really come to love. That, and I have people crying as I leave my practice, and asking to follow me. And usually they can't because I can't steal them from the practice. It's emotionally incredibly harrowing. I've switched jobs 2 or 3 times now. And especially in primary care where you build those relationships over the long term, it's incredibly difficult to leave. And really what I should have done is consulted a lawyer and had them fight for me.
Wow, that is fascinating. Fascinating. Thanks for sharing.
So tell me more about RMPA. What does your company do and how do you bill physicians?
Yeah, I think that's what really sets us apart from anybody else that you have ever talked to. Like, you've never talked to someone that does what we do and the way that we do it. Primarily, the thing that's the most important to know is we don't bill hourly. So you're never going to get an invoice from me for like reading emails or sending texts. Like, that's not what we do. What we do is much more akin to talent agents. So when you think about your favorite actor, professional athlete, movie star, those people all have agents. And their agent's job is to find them the best opportunity for the most amount of money for that actor or athlete. We do the exact same thing. So this weekend, for instance, a general surgeon called and said, similar to what you just told me, she's frustrated. She wants a salary raise. So my job is to help her negotiate a salary raise right where she is. How we bill is really important. I think this is also the thing that, again, sets us apart. I'll use the example of the OBGYNs I was just talking about to maybe illustrate kind of how it works. So up front, we have a retainer. The retainer is a set amount. The doctor will get that back at the end. The reason we have that is because we want for doctors to be committed to the process just like we are, right? We put a ton of effort and energy into our docs and our groups. And so we want to make sure they're in it as well. Then what we do is we do one of 2 things. One, we renegotiate your contract where you are. All of my doctors make more money. So those OBGYNs we were just talking about, on average, they were making like about $180,000 more each year after we renegotiated their salary. Some of them were like 200 plus, but on average, it was like 180. They were so substantially underpaid that they had to move mountains to get these docs what they deserve. If I don't charge hourly, how did I get paid for that? Again, go back to like sports, actors, movie stars. My fee is a percentage of your contract. So you don't have to worry, where's this money coming from? How much is it going to be? The doctors will pay a retainer, and that retainer says, hey, we're committed to this process with you, Ethan, to make a bunch of money. So for these docs, let's just say on average, we made $180,000 more for them. My fee is a percentage of that increase. And the way those doctors pay it is through what's called a retention bonus. So we made them a whole bunch more money. And then part of that was we negotiated a $40,000 retention bonus. And that means when the doctors sign to say, hey, we're committed for another few years, they get that $40,000 up front. And then less than half of that, less than half went to pay my fee. So $180,000 more a year, $40,000 signing bonus, and less than half of that bonus went to paying me. So the maths.
That's good that you get paid when the physician gets a raise. What if the physician doesn't get a raise? Then what happens?
I don't get paid.
Well, then you better work at it.
Yeah, it's just that simple. So I think then that naturally raises the question, well, like, why would I work with a doctor who's not committed to getting a salary raise, or a doctor who says, well, I don't really know. We're not a good fit for you. The doctors that we work with say we deserve better and we're willing to advocate for ourselves, and we're going to lock arms with our fellow doctors. And I think that's the thing that somehow is just not a priority for doctors, it seems to me, is like talking to your partners about how much money you make and being upset about the fact that some doctors are making this and some are making that, and you can't explain what the difference is. And nobody's speaking up and saying, like, this is not right. And we as a group want to fix this.
Yes, it's so powerful when doctors get together and speak as a group, because now you're talking about an entire clinic, an entire department just being gone from a hospital. It's unfortunate that doctors don't do that more often, but we really need to, like you said, lock arms and really advocate for each other. From your experience, what unique negotiation challenges have you faced when advocating for female doctors in particular?
Yeah, good question. I don't think that women doctors are a monolith in the sense that's like, well, all women are concerned about this. I have not experienced that, nor do I think that's reality. But I would say some of the situations that women have brought up that maybe I haven't heard men talk about is family planning, parental leave, maternity leave, time to have a child, raise a child, spend with that child. That's a common issue that comes up. It's more subtle, like you don't see this in the data necessarily, but I often see women wanting to maintain the relationship with the employer. And sometimes that means that worse things can happen to them, or they may be treated worse than some men who might say, like, I'm not putting up with that, I'm out of here. Or who say, like, you're not doing that to me, like, you're going to pay me what I deserve or else. I often hear doctors say, like, well, I'm aggressive. And it's like, aggressive has nothing to do with your success in negotiation. I never raise my voice, or I've been more animated in this conversation than I've ever been in a negotiation. I think there is an institutionalized fear or hesitance, one, potentially damage a relationship by speaking up and saying, like, I deserve better than the way I'm being treated, like the general surgeon I talked to this weekend. There's also maybe just a little more focus on the job, the patients, the benefits, the lifestyle, whereas sometimes it seems on a more general basis, men tend to get more focused on like the compensation. It's like, this is what I deserve. And if they don't give this to me, they don't respect me, things like that, which I don't really hear women speak like that generally in my experience, which is very narrow.
I agree with you. So here's the problem, right? This reminds me of the Taylor Swift song where I'd be the man. You know, if a woman is decisive and speaks her mind, she gets labeled as type A, overbearing, aggressive, whereas a man would be the man for doing that, right? The man would be, powerful, assertive, a decision maker, a leader, right? With those qualities. Whereas women tend to not stick up for themselves because they don't know quite how to do it correctly, right? Because there's no real right way to do it. Either you get taken advantage of or you get labeled.
Just because I think it's an important one that deserves some attention. I don't think that inherently men are any better at negotiating than women are. So what often happens is like the male doctors that I observe or have seen, when I worked on the hospital side, it's not that they were like sophisticated or like had data, but they were just like much more interested in like what I'm worth, respecting me, valuing me. I just want to maybe put a fine point on that because I've heard people say like, and this is not at all what you were saying, I'm not suggesting that in any way, but I've heard some people say like, well, men just are better at negotiating or men get the data. It's like, no, men are inherently no better at negotiating. And if anything, I tell my doctors all the time, and this applies to you as well, doctors are phenomenal negotiators in the context of getting your patients to do things we don't want to do. I don't want to exercise. I don't want to get better sleep. I want to, have more beers and, eat all the biscuits. But my doctor says, if you do that, here's the consequences, right? So I have the information to make an informed decision. And you've now won the negotiation by getting me to live the healthy lifestyle. And I think doctors don't get the credit you deserve for how good of negotiators you are. And at the same time, there's no way you could possibly be expected to leave the OR and then come to the boardroom and be just as proficient. There's just no way.
We do have those skills, but yeah, like you said, this is not what we do full time, and we can't expect to be proficient on both sides. I feel like there has to be a right answer. The problem is systemically, we haven't seemed to have found it, right? How to negotiate fair wages for everyone involved. Are there any systemic changes that you can think of that might help close the gender wage gap in medicine?
Yeah, I certainly think things like doctors having unions. Of course, you could legislate anything, right? You could legislate a fair wage. But healthcare, as you've probably seen in your career, there's no healthcare organization, right? It's kind of this sporadic, loosely connected industry of hospitals and clinics and ASCs now and all of these different things. So I would bring it to a very practical example that your listeners can do today. And it just takes like 30 seconds of courage. The thing that I think that would start to fundamentally change how doctors view their compensation, their value in the workplace is if tomorrow everyone went in and told your coworkers what you make. If you went to your partners and said, I make this number, what do you make? And they don't have to tell you what you make, but just get the ball rolling. Destigmatize talking about your salary. I guarantee you the people in the room are going to start to realize, wait, why am I making $40,000 less annually than Dr. Spath? We're doing the same job. Why am I making $20,000 less than Dr. Jones? I've been here for 4 years longer than her. If you all talked about your salaries at work, I think you would start to see the game of healthcare, and it would cause some tough conversations, I think, for some hospital executives.
That would be such a riot in so many clinics.
I can't even imagine, as you know, not every specialty is the same, right? So like you're going to have your pediatricians, you're going to have your general surgeons, then you're going to have your orthopedic surgeons and your neurosurgeons, right? Like this position's very different. And I don't think they're going to take it as lightly as an OBGYN doctor that there's disparity in their pay. Just talking about your pay. And look, your employer will say, oh, you have a confidentiality, blah, 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 blah. What are you going to do to you? What are they going to do if you talk about your salary? Are they going to fire you? Watch out revenue walk out the door? Bet they won't. What are you going to do? And then what are you going to do if we're all talking about it? If we're all talking about it and we're all locked arms and we all say, this is not right, fix it. Even if you all want to make the same amount of money, who cares? If you all want to make the same amount of money, fix it, but fix it for everyone. Don't just fix it for Jen or John or Tommy. Fix it for everybody.
Yeah, some of us value lifestyle more than we value the number in the bank account, and that's okay too, right? But make it fair, make it quantifiable.
Exactly. And my belief is that and you probably see this as well, but so many more doctors now are saying, I want to have a fulfilling life. And I think there's this pressure from the suits, at hospitals and clinics to say, well, you need to be busier, Dr. Smith. And if you're not, we're going to cut your pay. It's like, well, I can do both. I can have a thriving clinic and leave work and be a full human outside of my job, right? So many of my clients, money is not even the top two things they talk about. Schedule, malpractice, maternity leave, parental leave. They talk about resources, support. They talk about all of these other things that have nothing to do with money. Now, we're going to make you a bunch more money, but we're also going to fix those things that really impact your life and your practice on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, it would be a huge deal if we could get this addressed for all doctors in general, and not just women, not just, women of color, but everyone, and make it fair. And to the people that say it's not, well, I'm sorry, you're just wrong. I mean, it's hard to see those disparities from the position of privilege, but it's there. You'll see it. Ethan has seen it from the back end of administration, and I've seen it from, my personal experience, and I know many, many, many others that have seen it too. And if you just start talking to each other and sharing your experiences, that's the most powerful thing, right? That's why we're here. So how do you envision the future of your company, RMPA, in terms of further addressing these wage inequalities in healthcare? How are you going to do it?
Yeah, the biggest thing in my mind right now is that doctors need to know. So the message I'm trying to get out at scale is that doctors can renegotiate your salaries today. Don't wait for your contract to be up. This weekend, I talked to a general surgeon. She is having some concerns with her paid time off. She scheduled a meeting with her employers. They said, we're going to deny your PTO request, your paid time off request. And in addition to that, we didn't tell you about this, but we're going to put you on a performance improvement plan. Please, I need you to know you don't have to stay in a situation you're not happy with. You don't have to be miserable. And the number one thing doctors say to me is, Ethan, but my non-compete, I have eaten 2 non-competes before lunch. Please, your non-compete will not stop you. I have a doctor, a family medicine doctor, who moved 2 miles, and she's making $70,000 more each year to move 2 miles. Didn't have to change her kid's school, goes to the same church, goes to the same grocery store, and she's making $70,000 more a year to do it. So do not wait for something bad to happen or for your contract to be up. Renegotiate that thing right now and talk about your salary with your physician colleagues.
I like that. Boy, that is powerful that you're able to talk people out of their non-competes and get them, fair wage immediately. And it is true, we sign these contracts and it seems like it's written in blood, but everything is negotiable with the right people on your side, with the right strategies. I've never seen it done, but it'd be really great if it was done. And I'm glad that you're out there.
The system is set up for doctors to feel disposable or like you're not valuable. But I've never seen a hospital made up of MBAs like me. Never. I've only seen hospitals with folks like you, right? So to me, this system does not exist without doctors. And I think the last 20 to 30 years, we've seen a shift of the corporatization of healthcare where hospitals now are the center of healthcare and doctors are just another cog in the wheel.
A dispensable cog in the wheel is certainly how we're made to feel. Especially in the employee position, we don't have as much power as we did back in the owner position that doctors used to be in. So that's why we need to really arm ourselves with these tools and align ourselves with companies like yours to, negotiate fair pay, but also align ourselves with each other, right? Stop throwing each other under the bus and no more doc on doc crime. Like, get together and hold hands and we got this and we can do it. It's making me feel really good and empowered. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity to chat with you. And, this makes me think of, there's a group in Michigan who I went to spend some time with last year, all surgeons, private practice for the most part. And they have formed this group called Doctors Saving Doctors. As I did this presentation and I was walking out, one of the doctors in the room stopped me. She just broke down crying. And it emphasized for me how much doctors need each other. I'm not a doctor, so I have no clue what you go through once this screen goes black. I can't live your experience, but I know that there's other doctors who can, and they do understand. And to maybe just, underscore what you just said, it's like, please, doctors, lock arms with one another. Like, I can't speak about the politics and all of that, but what I can say is, like, if you're feeling frustrated, discouraged, disappointed, overlooked, someone else is too.
So powerful. Well, Ethan, thank you so much again for taking the time to come to talk to us. Are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I will end this by saying, talk about your salaries with your physician colleagues. I think you'll be surprised at what you learn, some good, some bad. And you don't need to wait to renegotiate your salary. Do it now, do it now, do it now.
And where can they find you if they need more information?
You can find us on our socials. On Instagram, we are Physician Agency. Our website is RMPA, RobertMaryPaulAdam.com. And then we also are starting to put some of our insights on YouTube, which is my first name and last name, Ethan Nkana. We've got a ton of free resources for doctors to be able to go in, equip themselves with these discussions so they don't need us. Go do it on your own. Like, I want to see you be successful, even if it's not working with us.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much again for all that you're doing, for advocating for doctors. I know your mom is so very proud of you, and it's great to see, a lawyer out there fighting on our side. So thanks again. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Ethan, thank you for sharing your valuable insights and for your commitment to advocating for equitable compensation in the medical field. To our listeners, we hope this episode has enlightened you on the crucial issue of the wage gap in medicine and the ways we can work towards closing it. Now, a final word from our sponsor. At Pearson Rabbits, they understand that life can change in an instant. It's hard to imagine that a sudden illness, injury, or catastrophic event could put you and your family in a devastating financial situation. Physician-founded and physician-focused, Pearson Rabbits builds human connections before they create quotes. Visit www.pearsonrabbits.com today and embark on your journey to safeguarding your future. This is Dr. Disha Spath, your host of Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician. Stay tuned for more discussions that bridge the wage gap. Until then, stay frugal, y'all.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.